We got to talk about the jeans.
Yeah, we got to
Mrs. Coulter would never wear jeans. I mean, if Boreal should be.
Sorry.
I mean, if Boreal should ever do a forehead slap, this would be the moment, right?
I was wondering if I got forehead. There we go. Okay. Oh, wow.
That's what I'm going to call him for the rest of the episode, forehead.
Oh my God.
Part of Double P Media, doublepmedia.com.
Spoiler alert, when this podcast talks about the books of his Dark Materials, it does so in the context of the most recent book. And when it talks about the television show on the BBC and HBO, it does so in the context of the most recent episode. You've been warned.
You're listening to The Dust, a His Dark Materials podcast.
Welcome to the Dust Podcast, dedicated to HBO and the BBC series His Dark Materials, and also once in a while to Philip Pullman's books. We do a special book section for book readers at the very end of the podcast, so if you're a book reader, stick around for those insights. My name is Double M.
Double M?
Yes, that stands for Matt Murdock, and I am joined by someone whose entire music collection consists of obscure 90s hits. It's Holly.
Hey, how's it going, everybody?
We're looking at Season 2, Episode 5, entitled The Scholar. It was written, this is an all-girl crew today, written by Francesca Gardner and directed by, once again, her third episode in a row, Lin-Manuel, or Wellham. Figure I might as well be consistent and butcher it both ways. And the synopsis is, Will and Lyra set out to retrieve what's been lost. Mary takes a leap of faith. Interesting little synopsis there. As always, we're part of the Double P Podcast Network, so we have to use doubles, at least, to rate our episodes, because I insist on it in order to keep the Double P brand happy. That's once again Double P Podcasts, or the Double P family of podcasts, or Double P Media, whatever you want to call them. I'll tell you a little bit more about them in a minute. But I'm going to go first with my rating this time, Holly, because you always get to go first. And I'm going to give this one 9.1 out of 10, what I like to call double Ps.
Double Ps?
Yeah, that's pan plans.
Oh.
I loved the Coulter stuff. I mean, when don't I? And I loved the Mary stuff. This is a very female strong episode, and I loved all of it because it's showing us boys just how oblivious we can be sometimes in many, many regards. When you think about Boreal or his guard, I guess you could say that there was some bad news. We didn't get any Lee or Joe Perry, but why would you in an all-female driven episode? I think it's cool that they decided to eliminate as many of the males, except for the ones that are stupid, as possible. Well, and with the exception of Will. The good news of all of that is, of course, more Mrs. Coulter, which was not something, when you think about this content in this perspective of the books, that you would expect to see. But once again, if you've got Ruth Wilson, use her, damn it, use her. And I love that. I do have a few nitpicks for this particular episode, but I really loved some of the humor in it. Some of it wasn't so covert as maybe most people like their humor. It was a little more overt, but I love it when it's smacked in my face. And a lot of it was really funny to me. So as opposed to how I normally am, I do like to laugh. Holly, how about you? How did you rate this episode?
Well, first, I think it's funny that you're talking about how women-centric this episode is, and yay, women, but then you insisted on going first, but it's cool.
Well, I got to balance the scale somehow.
Okay. I'm just picking on you. I rated this episode... I went a little bit higher than you.
Of course.
Because reasons. I liked it more than you did. And I feel like maybe I was more harsh than I needed to be on my rating of last week, so I tried to make up for it for this week, so I went 9.2 out of 10. Double D's.
Double D's?
Denim disgust.
I like it.
The writers write these changes for the show that are different than the book, but it just makes it better. Lots of little funny moments, like you said, throughout the episode. For me, Ruth Wilson stole this whole entire episode, except for Bella Ramsey's scene. That was all her. That scene belonged to Bella Ramsey. I feel like that scene alone could get nominated and is deserving of awards. I'm sure it won't be, but it was fantastic. It was so good for me that I wasn't even mad that there was no Lee and John Perry this week. Okay, maybe a little mad, but not really mad. I was just like, oh, they weren't in it, but it did not hurt the episode for me at all. I thought this was probably the best episode yet.
Excellent. Well, that's good news, and I want to share some more good news. As far as the ratings go, it's trending back up for the live watches, not by much. But we started out the season on HBO with only about 227,000 live viewers, and that's increased by to 234,000 live viewers as of episode 3. It was at its lowest point at the beginning. Maybe people just forgot it was going to be on, but it is trending up, and that, again, doesn't have anything to do with streaming ratings, which I don't have access to, but all of this information comes from tvseriesfinale.com. So, it's still not at the numbers that it was last season when it was fresh and new. And maybe, you and I have both talked about how much we love this season so much more than season 2. I'm worried that people like, Catfish won't even give season 2 a try because they just felt soured by season 1, maybe a little bit.
Well, like I told him on Twitter earlier before recording, that this is his loss. He should get back on this. I think he would like it.
I think he would too. I think he'd be much more about this season. Then again, no one can speak for Catfish other than Catfish. He is who he is. But Catfish is doing a podcast with Bubba where you can hear him speak his mind to plenty, covering The Mandalorian. That is the season 2 of their show as well. It's on Disney Plus. Make sure to check out the Parsec Passion podcast, another member of the family of Double P podcasts. Boy, Packed Podcasts podcast. Who ever thought of that name? Bubba. Anyway, yeah, if you want to contact them to complain about me, the way that I do these podcasts poorly, or if you just want to follow what they're doing with the Parsec Passion podcast covering The Mandalorian, be sure to check out the entire Double P family of podcasts. You can follow them on Twitter at the word double, the letters PHQ. You can find them on Facebook, facebook.com/the word double, the letters PHQ. Or you can find even our videos on their YouTube channel if you want to see some pictures go by as Holly and I talk, rather than just trying to picture my ugly face in your head while I'm speaking. Search for Double P Media on YouTube, or there's a little bit of a cheat that you can use that we're going to give you. It's youtube.com/user/what, Holly?
FITTENTRIM.
See, she does that so much better than me. As I said last time, it's now her job. As for us, we want to know what you thought of this episode as well. And don't forget that we do have Second Look podcasts at the end of the week as well, where we can include some of your feedback if you didn't get a chance to get it into us before we recorded for this particular episode. You can tweet to @TheDustPodcast. You can send emails to dustpodcast@gmail.com. You can call 314-269-0421 and leave a voicemail. Or you can even comment on our blog, which is mattsaudioblog.com. I put all of the episodes up there. There's podcast app links there as well. If you want to try and subscribe to us via one of those mediums that we have up, I don't know, Pandora, iTunes, Apple Podcasts, or just subscribe to our RSS feed, that is fine as well. When you do subscribe using a podcast app or going through Apple Podcasts or whatever, it would mean so much to us if you could leave us a written review. If you subscribe, if you hit that subscribe button, if you give us a star rating, and if you leave us a written review, that's how we can continue to stay in your top 30 podcasts covering His Dark Materials out of, maybe 10 that are actively covering the show. So please do that. Or you can also, if you'll want to submit 3-word descriptions of an episode to us, those are the 2 ways. Written reviews and 3-word descriptions enter you into a contest that gives you a chance to win cool His Dark Materials merchandise on us. We'll draw a winner at the end of the season, and we'll let you know if you won. Maybe we'll make it. Maybe we'll draw 3 names, and the first person who gets back to us wins. I don't know. I'm kind of toying with you the same way that Boreal likes to toy with, statues that he stole from his world and then made priceless in our world. Maybe I'm just, filibustering for time so I can find my place on the dock. But nonetheless, Holly will have a ton of names to draw from. We've already got a huge number of contestants for this. We don't want you to not be a part of it. We want you to be part of it so that you have a chance to win. And yes, I am going to make Holly print out all of these names and separate them and fold them and throw them into a hat and draw. And that will be live on the Double P YouTube as well. We'll make sure, just so that everybody knows that we aren't cheating or playing favorites or anything like that. I'm going to update the list of people who are eligible for the contest once again in the Second Look podcast later this week. Holly, you ready to get into this episode? Have I appropriately worn you out before we even get started?
Yes, and yes, let's go.
Okay. Now, I got a DM from Keegan Brink. Keegan, I'm not exactly sure how to say it, asking us to ease off on the doubles just a little bit. But I just couldn't help it this episode, Holly. I just could not help it. There's just a few of them that are just too good or terrible, as they usually are in the case with me, because here come the dad jokes. But they are just, too irresistible. So I've sneaked a few of them in, as well as sneaking in all of those little nitpicks that I mentioned. I kind of sneaked them into the scene description so that we can get right to the important stuff about talking about the scene otherwise. So, take those or leave them, however you will. That's fine with me. We'll start off with the previously. It's 100 seconds long. Yes, I watched the timer this time around. And yeah, recap retcon right there. Oh, let's do 2 separate shots that don't happen at the same time. One of Boreal and Mrs. Coulter looking at each other and then looking at Lyra, and then an entirely separate shot of Lyra looking into the window. That's still 2 rooms away from where Boreal was. I mean, it just didn't work for me. Sorry, that's just the way it goes. Getting into the episode, and I did everything before the credits, I did link together by location, but after that, we're going strictly chronologically. Mrs. Coulter observes Will's Oxford from the car. The Golden Monkey is properly seatbelted, and Boreal is bringing back Starbucks, or whatever the equivalent is in Oxford. And Boreal explains that these people have no demons, which makes them, I don't know, savage in his eyes. They have the appearance of freedom, but this government that they're under is more corrupt than the magisterium. And then he also says that they are a culture of consumerism, not faith. It's all about the dollar. Interestingly enough, as we find out in this episode, Boreal seems to be a pretty good student of consumerism as well. But prepare yourself, Marisa, he says. And you can tell by the way she's checking it all out that she already likes it. She sees a lot more possibility in this world than just money, as Boreal seems to. But Boreal really does like stuff, and he shows his house off better than, one of those real estate agents in one of those home and garden shows or whatever. I mean, he's basically telling Miss Coulter as they pull up, look at that curb appeal. And here we go. Are you ready to come in and take the tour? Are you going to love it or list it? And I felt like Boreal's already failing, Holly, in the fact that he doesn't even see that Mrs. Coulter is liking this world. And why wouldn't she? There appears to be more independence for women. Just from looking out the window, she can tell that. There's a woman working on a laptop while she's taking care of her baby. I mean, that would never happen in Lyra's world. And here's the thing that really got me, Holly. I mean, he wasn't even considerate enough to buy a booster seat for the monkey. I mean, if a monkey is that size, shouldn't it be in a booster seat and faced away towards the back seat and properly secured that way? It's monkey abuse yet again, as we see countless times in this episode. On the other hand, how cute is the golden monkey all seat belted up? And seemingly not really happy about it. Boreal seatbelts seem to have a bad effect on people, on Lyra, on the golden monkey, and I'm not sure if I want Boreal hosting Love It or List It from the Home and Gardens channel. How about you, Holly? What do you think?
I didn't think the seatbelt was cute. I thought it was funny. It made me laugh, but I don't really think the monkey's very cute at all. So I wasn't like, oh, look at him. I was just like, huh. I laughed. I chuckled. That was it. I think Boreal's assessment on our culture of consumerism is 1,000% accurate. Debatable which governing body or seat of power is more corrupt. I guess that depends on your definition of corrupt. And I don't know. That's kind of hard to say. I don't think the magisterium needs to do like any kind of weird finance corruption with money to move money around. They just tell people how to live their lives in an extremely strong way. So I don't know. What do you think about that?
Well, one thing that you can be certain of when it comes to the Man-gesterium, as I'm going to call them all this episode, is the fact that the Man-gesterium would never have to worry about Brexit because they own all of it. How do you leave yourself? So that's one of those things. I don't know if that commentary there had a little more connotations for a UK audience than it did for the US. I can certainly think of several ways that it would have struck a chord in US audiences for sure about government corruption. But I'm not being a citizen there or not really knowing what their politics is like. I can't really comment on the UK politics too much.
I'm just going to assume that there's probably some corruption that they know or don't know about, and I don't know. Governments are always hiding stuff from their citizens to some degree. So
that's true. How about a government where there's nobody there to corrupt? And that's Chitagase, where Will and the Knife Part 2 happens, and Will is trying to use the Force. Doesn't work. So he just throws it and sticks it in the wall. And the only thought that I could think of there was, thank goodness that handle was there, because I don't know if it would have stopped. What if it had ended up somehow in the middle of the wall and they couldn't get to it anymore? That was not a good idea, Will. And so he learned to control his emotions a little bit like that. And then it's time to make a plan. And it's a PAN plan. It's a double P. And I guess they just thought, let's draw on this table while we conveniently somehow have chalk, and we don't conveniently seem to have any more paper or writing utensils anymore. I guess Lyra used up the last of the ink when she wrote her little note to Will. But, maybe they also just want to erase the plan so that they have no evidence of it. But where they get the chalk, I don't know.
It's a city full of children. There's got to be like hopscotch boards all up and down the streets of Chitagase, because it's just kids there, and that's how they probably have like really cool hopscotch boards just like all over the place. And I don't know, that sounds fun. I'm sure chalk is easy to come by in a city full of kids and no adults. There also seems to be like a lot of little cafes. I don't know if they do chalkboard art at the cafes in Chitagase like they do here in America, but they're pretty prevalent, so I don't know. Could have come from anywhere.
Anyway, Pan points out that they shouldn't use the window that they know exists after Will draws the layout, and he says, you should cut a little closer. That's a heck of a good idea there, Pan, I think. And Lyra says they need to figure out where they need to cut in order to get in the house in relation to Chitagase. Will says that, well, he actually needs to figure out if he can cut a window at all. And then we get to the credits or the intro. So Will's he's in a double S.
A double S?
He's in a sophomore slump. Oh. It happens to all of the pro baseball players. Pick yourself up, kid. You're going to be just fine. How about you, Holly? What do you think about this?
I think Pan was right not to use that one window that we already knew about, because by the end of the episode, we see that it's guarded. So they may have been waiting for an ambush and take the knife by force if they would have come through that way. So good thinking, Pan.
Good thinking, Pan. Speaking of getting that place guarded, Boreal is back at his house, and he's showing off the place. I don't think Marissa's so impressed with the bachelor pad. So it turns out that he's actually been a cultural art trafficker between worlds. And I love when Marissa has a little fun with him. Then she cuts to the chase saying, what's all this about Lyra? And he shows her that he's acquired the alethiometer and how that's going to bring Lyra to them and then ultimately to her.
I think Boreal's date isn't going nearly as well as he planned.
For sure.
She's completely underwhelmed by everything, or even if she's not letting on any of her feelings about what she's seeing, really, except when they're bad feelings, and she could care less about the double B.
Double B?
Yeah, boring Berlin Wall.
Oh, double B wall. Excellent. I like that. I just lost it on two accounts. First of all, the expression on Boreal's face when she kind of feigned dropping the piece, that was absolute gold to me. I love that.
For me, it was the noise he made, like a sound, and that sent me. It was great.
But the more subtle one, not so subtle, but still a little more subtle than that one, was then he takes the piece back and he's starting to put it away, and the monkey just turns and looks up at her. Like, oh my gosh, what are you doing? It was hilarious. I laughed so hard. I had to actually pause the episode and laugh for a minute, and then I started it again.
That might have been the first time Mrs. Coulter had fun ever in her life.
It might have been, actually. I don't know. She takes things very seriously. Of course, she should have it at Boreal's expense. He's been plotting he's been hiding her daughter from her, basically. Mm-hmm. And now he's using her not only to get what he wants, but to also get what he wants, which is Mrs. Coulter. It's just awful. I don't like it at all. Back at Chitakaze, Will is starting to get out of his batting slump. Sometimes you got to use those chicken heads or whatever and rub it all over your bat. But it starts working. Lyra is basically his little superstition thing. And she keeps reminding him to use the force, Luke. Let go, Luke. And after a little double W? Window whispering. She gives a friendly reminder to close that pneumonia hole when you're done before they take off and try more.
A what?
Pan notes... pneumonia hole.
What?
Never heard of a pneumonia hole?
No.
Okay. For you folks in the South, all of us folks who live where it actually gets cold, unlike you whiners who think that it's cold and complain about humidity and what have you. When you leave a window open and it's cold, or when you're driving in a car and the window is down slightly because somebody wants to smoke a cigarette or something, then what you do instantly is you tell them to close that pneumonia hole, because that cold's going to get in there and give you pneumonia. That's what we say up here. Or maybe that's just a family thing, but I've heard that all my life, and so that's where pneumonia hole comes from, Holly.
Listeners, you have no idea how many times in that short segment that Matt personally attacked me. He cut me deep just now.
Put it on the poll. Have you ever heard of a pneumonia hole? You look for that poll. I've pinned to the top of our Twitter feed. Have you ever heard of a pneumonia hole, or do you know what a pneumonia hole is? We'll figure out the wording for that so that it works out in my favor one way or the other. But Pan notes that Will is getting his batting average up, and then Will finds a place in front of Boreal's pad that relates to Chitakaze, and they realize that if they cut near the tower, they will be in Boreal's house and can get the alethiometer. Pan reminds them that you can't do any thieving in broad daylight. Once again, Pan through with the logical advice. And Will promises Lyra that they'll get the alethiometer back. So, the whispering at the window, that was one of those cute little moments that they'll look back on, right? Because they are falling in love, right? Right?
Oh, it's so cute. I love that little scene. It was precious.
It was precious. And one of the things that I really loved is it's nice how all of these locations that they're going to use the knife on has this proximity to the location that they got the knife from. I love that Boreal's house just happens to be at Tower Central.
He was so close. He's been so close to physically, except with a world barrier in between him and the knife. He's practically on top of the knife in that world. That's interesting.
It is. And once again, we ask the question, coincidence or Falcons? Only Bubba will get that joke, but we're going to leave that in there.
Oh, they lost twice to our second string quarterback. Okay.
Anything else about that scene?
No, thank you for clearing up pneumonia hole for me. Definitely never heard that before.
Does anybody down there even get pneumonia? I mean, come on.
Yes.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
And we have animals get pneumonia too.
Oh, the demons get pneumonia too?
Yeah.
Oh, that's not fun. Well, I'm sorry I brought it up.
That's okay.
Boreal tries to set the mood with a lovely piece called Lifted by the Lighthouse Family. It doesn't work, and why would that ever work? But no matter how good the speakers are, that's not going to sway Mrs. Coulter at all. He tries to bribe her with mentioning some kind of research project that he's going to fund, like he thinks he's still got a chance with Mary Malone. But it's the research project that got Lyra's attention. It's Mary Malone's, and now Marissa actually is a little interested. Coulter wants to meet Mary Malone, but she's going to need a change of clothes, according to Boreal. And she's willing, so long as she doesn't have to wear jeans. And she puts on a little tease for Boreal before she kicks him out so that she can actually change. And then she considers not just a clothing change, but a hair change too. So I want to comment a little bit about this song. And for you UK listeners, I hope I don't offend you. But a long time ago, and we're talking, oh gosh, nearly 30 years ago now, I worked with a guy, a really good country performer and songwriter. He's written many hits. He's written lots of hits for Kenny Chesney. But we worked on the early stages of one called Don't Happen Twice, which you may have heard of. It didn't really come out, I don't think, until maybe the late 90s. But Kurt always told me that this was the one-hit wonder that he would have and be able to get a little bit of mailbox money for the rest of his life. Today with Spotify and all this stuff, maybe his checks are probably pretty small. But my question is, to you UK listeners, please tweet at us at The Dust Podcast or send emails to dustpodcast@gmail.com or call and leave a voicemail 314-269-0421. But this Lifted by the Lighthouse Family, would you consider this a one-hit wonder? Or would you consider it a Meatloaf 2 out of 3 ain't bad? Because Lifted was actually released 3 different times. It was released in the summer of 95, and it made the top 70 in the UK. Had its best success when it was re-released in February of 1996, and it made several top 40 charts, Canadian, UK, and Australian, I think. I'm not sure if it made anything in the US charts or not. And then it was released once again in 1999 with, wow, different cover art. I mean, wow. How to reinvent yourself. So is this just a one-hit wonder that they tried to milk too many times? Or is it a 2 out of 3 ain't bad, where they got at least into the rankings 2 out of the 3 times that they released it? What I don't care about is the fact that I've never heard of this song. I don't care what it's about, and I don't know if the lyrics or anything were supposed to be, or the music itself was supposed to be significant. But again, I apologize if you're a fan of Lighthouse Family, but I just don't care. I had the same reaction to it that Mrs. Coulter did.
Yeah, I don't think I've ever heard that song before. I thought it was an interesting choice of song by choosing a not very interesting song. Sorry again, UK listeners. If y'all do like that, tell me why I should like the song. It was strange. It didn't really fit what I imagined Boreal's music taste would be, but
No.
I'm not saying that trying to make any assumptions like at all what his music taste would be. I don't know. It just this just didn't seem like it was it.
It just doesn't seem pretentious enough for him, does it?
No. It was weird, and I don't know. I wonder if I would feel differently if it was a song I actually recognized and had opinions on. I don't know how I'd feel, but yeah,
well, I can tell you exactly why they chose that song. Because with a record like that, they knew they weren't going to have to pay much in the way of royalties.
Well, that makes sense.
Well, okay, that was a bad. That was slanderous. Actually, that is reckless speculation. We'll qualify that as reckless speculation. We have no idea. Maybe it's Jack Thorne's favorite song. Maybe it is.
Now I feel bad for the Lighthouse family, and I hope they get many returns on this song being in this episode.
That's right. I'm all about the artists getting the money. So you go, guys. I'm glad you got in there, actually. So that's fine with me. Anything else about that? Oh, we got to talk about the jeans.
Yeah, we got to.
Mrs. Coulter would never wear jeans. I mean, if Boreal should ever do a forehead slap, this would be the moment, right?
Yeah. Once again, Boreal just. This date, he just keeps messing up this date, like, just one red flag after the other, puts on boring music, brags about his sound system, clearly, like, wrong audience in this case. The clothes, I guess he knew her size-ish, so that's, like...
That's kind of creepy.
It's creepy, but also nice, I don't know, in a way, like...
I don't know, man. Those jeans looked awful big to me. I mean, unless they were supposed to be loose-fitting.
Maybe, or, more professional-looking jeans, so they were, not, like, super low-cut or anything, but she wasn't having that. That's way, way, way too beneath her. She's like, what? This is, like, some Egyptian clothes or something, like, something she would never... Something she would never, ever wear. If people do wear denim in her world, they are way below her station. Sorry. I don't know who I'm offending, people in a fictional world, I guess, but I don't know. It just seems like she would believe that is way below her station and she should not be caught dead wearing those. So I liked it. And it's a nice callback to the first episode of the season where Lyra also scoffs at the idea of wearing pants. But what's different here is Mrs. Coulter actually does put on pants, just not denim jeans. She gets some nice, like, trousers, if you will.
Yeah. The hair thing, when she started to push her hair down, I mean, it was kind of partially already down anyway because either because they'd done too many takes of that or because, just her running around in the car and being in a new world and all this stuff. Possibly that was it.
I gotta say, I admire her observation of the little time she spent in the car. From what we saw, she got a good look at people and she recognized that, people don't really wear their hair like this. Their ponytails like lay flat on their head. So let me try to fix that.
Yeah. Well, women definitely beat men in this episode. And Mrs. Coulter doesn't just find a way to beat Boreal in this episode many times over, but she really kind of beats the MAN-gesterium over as well. We call them the MAN-gesterium to this episode. Was there ever a better collection of creepy old white dudes that represent the real villains of this story? I mean, just take this on authority, pun intended. I'm a creepy old white dude. I know a creepy old white dude when I see one. And by golly, they had the best collection of creepy old white dudes I've ever seen on a television screen at one time. They need to restore faith, this MAN-gesterium does, not in the authority, just in them, according to Cardinal MacPhail. And the Mrs. Coulter disappearance is brought up, which throws egg on the face of MacPhail yet again. And Graves sees it. It's an opportunity for the power struggle. He's going to get back in there. But then the news comes of the witch attack, and he's got even more ammunition. They've crossed the window. But MacPhail trumps Graves with seeing this as an opportunity to clean the house, saying that this is the authority testing us. It's testing us for our lack of faith, and Father Graves here is the one who is causing all of this. He's the sinner that we need to get rid of in order to make things right for the MAN-gesterium. And so he sends Father Graves to the cell, and MacPhail then, because the Coulter thing cut him a little deep, he asks Fra Pavel to use the alethiometer to find out where the heck she is.
I actually like this about MacPhail, that he is the only one, despite him being in charge of the magisterium and they, want things to go their way all the time, he's the only one that's like, let's not ignore the thing that's in the sky, clearly, and everybody else is just like, oh, let's just pretend it's not there, and he's still kind of maintaining, like, no, it's there, have faith, like, oh, that's what we need to tell people, and it's like, okay, I kind of admire him for that, just because he's so different from the rest of the men around that table. However, I've kind of said before, I don't really care too much for the magisterium scenes when there's a bunch of them, and this was the perfect amount of magisterium stuff for me in this episode. A nice check-in, just to make sure that they are all still doing an evil, and they are still doing an evil, so good job. Other than that, I just liked watching the demons in this scene, and I really liked the rat demon. I thought that was really cool. I like rats, not necessarily...
Well, you hang out with me enough.
Not necessarily like city rats that are, gross, and yes, they carry plague and stuff, but I also think rats make good pets if, you've bred properly and all of that stuff, and I haven't had an interest in the past of owning a rat as a pet. I still kind of do, even though I probably won't, and so I just liked seeing the rat demon. It made me happy.
I love all of that, but I just totally disagree with you about MacPhail. I mean, essentially, he has become Hitler. It's like, let's go attack the Russians when the problem's probably still here coming from the West. And he uses zero logic or plausibility in terms of conniving this whole thing about, well, it must be you, Father Graves. There just isn't anyone in the room who could possibly actually believe this. But because MacPhail acts... And this is where, again, I'll compare him to Hitler, because Hitler did the same thing to his men. By punishing them right in front of everybody else, by punishing Graves like that, he's ensured that no one else is going to challenge him. Sure, you can't hide what's happened, but he has taken a total, if it wasn't already, he has made this into a total dictatorship, even over his own fellow faithful. And that made it very disturbing to me.
You're 100% not wrong at all. I don't know. I think and maybe that says more about me, that I'm like, wow, he's not denying the thing that is clearly like for everyone to see while everybody else is, and I want to give him credit for that.
Oh, and I think that's a valid point. You're
100% right. He's evil. The magisterium's evil. He's definitely, it's scary how quickly he's able to wield this power that he wouldn't even have if it wasn't for Mrs. Coulter, and make things go the way he needs them to go. And he's actually very good at it. So that's not that that's a good thing. It's just like, I don't know. It's spooky.
Yeah. Well, she's haunting him as usual. And she's also dressed for some Malone success, because you can't be showing off your demon either. And she decides that you've got these threads. You're going to look like you're ready. You're a competent mother. And so you got to get rid of the monkey. So she locks the golden monkey in the room and leaves him behind. Then she tells Boreal that Lyra might return, or actually Boreal says Lyra might return. And she says, no, well, then you have to stay. So give me the keys. I love that Mrs. Coulter is literally driving this episode. And when he asks about her demon, she says that he must have never encountered witches before. And he kind of freaks out, and then he gives her the keys. And poor little golden monkey, who I actually did feel a little sorry for in this episode, he's staring out the window and whimpering as she's getting ready to leave. So let's make this perfectly clear. She didn't actually say that she was a witch. She just compared her capability of separation from demons to witches. Now, do we want to ponder anything other than that? Do we want to ponder if there is something about witches in her history? And if you want to use circumstantial evidence for that, if you look back on the episode where Dr. Lancilius was testifying, his description of the demon separation ceremony did spark a reaction from her. But I don't want to comment one way or the other, because I don't think there's enough information to really comment. I'm just wanting our listeners to ask those questions.
I will be happy to comment on this in the book section.
Okay.
And it's just my opinion. But I do feel like the show has been trying to imply this. Whether you want to believe it or not is really up to you, whether you're a book reader or not. That's all the information I'll share here. I'll get into more detail in the book section.
All right.
I started to feel a little bad for the monkey here too, these are new feelings for me. I've never felt bad for that monkey once, ever, except until like the episode with her and Lee a couple weeks ago now.
Yeah.
That was like, ooh, I felt a little bad for him in that moment. This time I feel a little bit more bad for him, but don't worry, those feelings aren't going to last too long for me. And I'm just going to say Mrs. Coulter can pull off anything wardrobe-wise if she so chooses to. I think she could have put on those jeans and wore them unlike any woman has ever worn jeans in this life. She would have been turning heads, but she didn't want to. That's fine. That's her choice. But she looked fantastic. And I thought the color, well, no, we've seen her wear pink before, I guess.
Yeah.
So the color felt a little weird for her character, but then she put it all together and it just worked. Ugh, she looks so good. Oh my God. And like I said earlier, very interesting that she did go ahead and choose to wear pants instead of being like Lyra and scoffing at the idea of ever wearing pants. She's kind of embracing that masculine energy that she can't in her world. So she's just gonna girl boss her way through this world. I like it.
Well, speaking of that, she goes to Oxford and she just lets herself into Mary's office because that's what you do when you're Mrs. Coulter, and starts looking around at some papers, particularly Mary's latest one about shadow particles and consciousness. That's what I could get off the screen grab. Mary comes in, alarmed, finding Mrs. Coulter there. Coulter seems to be alarmed to find that jeans are a thing because that's what Mary's wearing. Lyra gets mentioned, and Mary goes on and on about Lyra and the concepts, and all of this alarms Coulter of how much she's not only finding out how much her daughter knows about dust already, but she's been left kind of deprived of the same kind of opportunities that Mary Malone seems to have. And then Mary asks, where would theology come to science? At what point? Because experimental theology comes into play. And Coulter answers, where does theology not come into science? And then, being a former nun and having obviously left being a nun in order to become a scientist, this makes Mary a little wary. She starts asking about Mrs. Coulter's education. And then she says, oh, wait, I didn't even offer you any coffee. She goes to get the coffee, and Mrs. Coulter slips out the door. A few minutes later, Mary's back down in the cave, and she's Googling Mrs. Coulter because that's what we do. Goose eggs is what she gets. But all of a sudden, the cave comes to life, and angels speak. You must play the serpent. Oh, wait, that's the wrong angel voice. That doesn't work. You must play the serpent. You've been preparing for this for as long as you've lived. You are to make a journey which starts at a hornbeam. Deceive the guardian, find the entrance. Now I'm starting to sound like a weird Yoda. You will be protected, save the girl and the boy. Your work is finished. We will not speak again in this world. Then the cave goes very light and then dark. For good? It would appear so.
It turned red, right? Didn't the lights go red?
Well, the everything went out, and then the emergency red lights came on.
Oh, okay. I was going to say the cave was really mad at Mary for using Google when the cave is right there. Like, hey, why are you asking Google? I'm sitting right here. So it does the Xbox 360 red ring of death after it tells her what she needs to know and just dies.
Exactly. It's like I am the universe's greatest search engine. Why aren't you using me? Oh, too funny. I love it. Go ahead.
I love this exchange between Mary and Mrs. Coulter. Show-only viewers, this does not happen in the books. This is another great, beautifully added scene, which drives both of the characters, I think, but its effect on Mrs. Coulter is, oh man, and we just get to see it for the whole rest of the episode. She is just completely shaken up by the potential and the possibilities that she could have had she lived in this world, and just seeing Mary having published her papers and she's leading her own department and all of this stuff. It's just, it's really great to see her have to kind of like come to terms with how different their worlds are, and she couldn't even handle it, so she had to leave, and that's not like Mrs. Coulter at all. So I love the effect it had on her. And the episode being called The Scholar, you want to assume it's about Mary, and Mary had important things that happened in this episode with her, but I feel like it's more about Mrs. Coulter. Like I said earlier, Mrs. Coulter stole this whole episode, and I feel like the title is more for her than even for Mary. I just loved it. I love that scene. It was fantastic. And even everything, the confusion on Mary's face when she's just talking about like how are these things not going together with religion and science. It's just, oh man, loved it. Loved it.
It was a beautifully crafted scene and excellently executed. And I do not want to degrade Ruth Wilson in any way, but she is Charlie Sheen's dream. She is winning unbelievably in this episode. She is amazing. Just to see that gradual, first, she seems kind of disarmed during that conversation in the office anyway, but to see just penetrating just a little bit by little bit by little bit how this whole thing that Mary is about, not the dust, not any of that, but just the fact that Mary is able to run a department, that she's dressed casually to do so. She doesn't have to have a look of power to be in a position of true, what Mrs. Coulter considers to be actual power, the power of knowledge. And to see that just slowly build up on Ruth Wilson's face was amazing to me. To give credit to Lin-Manuel for finding those shots and keeping them consistent and growing throughout the entire scene, and the editors for that. Give credit to the actresses, of course, as I said, but this to me was an even better performance than the one with Lynn a couple of weeks ago, in terms of the seeing the change happen on the expressions of her face. So subtle and so progressive. It was amazing to me. I loved it.
It's hard to compare those two scenes. I think that they're both incredibly excellent, and Ruth Wilson is incredible in both of them, but it's hard for me to compare those when one is, I don't know.
I think you're right in a way that it is apples and oranges in the fact that the Lee scene is guttural emotionally,
Yes.
And this one is much more of I don't know, a heady kind of transformation. So it is different. So I agree with you there. Okay. Absolutely. Lyra and Will develop their plan, and Lyra is going to distract while Will cuts into the room and steals the alethiometer. Then suddenly they hear crying. They go around a corner and they find Angelica and Paolo crying, and they're trying to awaken Tullio from his zombie state. Angelica comes over to them upset and angry, and she says it is their fault for what happened to Tullio, and she vows that they will pay for it. Shortly after that, Will and Lyra are sitting on a bench, and he's having these feelings. It's like, man, I just can't get out of this murder racket. I'm just, I didn't mean for any of this to happen. I didn't mean for the cat to trip my guy. It's just all of these things have happened to me, and I'm the one who ends up being a murderer and being accused of being a murderer. Even your alethiometer is accusing me of being a murderer. And Pan and Lyra do the best they can, the same way that Hester tried to reason it out with Lee a couple of weeks ago. Pan and Lyra are saying, hey, man, these are circumstances. It wasn't your fault. And he just stares at his knife. I can't help but think maybe he's thinking, what the heck have I gotten myself into? Who the heck am I? Poor Will. This was the one boy scene that really got me this time around, but not near as much as Bella Ramsey's portrayal for this, Holly. I loved Bella Ramsey as Leona Mormont, but Bella did this character, Angelica, some serious justice, because I was just about to bawl when I watched the way that Angelica was reacting to Tullio and the way that she confronted Will and Lyra. And I am totally now bleeping terrified of that promise she made for revenge. Paula, thank goodness she was kind of in the background of the scene because of the little bits that you could see of her. They were well in the background of this amazing portrayal by Bella Ramsey. She upped her game. Lyanna Mormont was always kind of cold and very heroic, but this was an emotional side that Bella Ramsey portrayed that I never experienced watching this young actress, and she did an incredible job. And the kid playing Tulio, he did a fantastic job too. It's hard to stand there while people are tugging on you, moving around, and you have to try and keep this, blank stare on your face. Really sold it for me. Maybe even better than the first guy that Lyra ran into. So it was an impactful scene for me. How about you?
Yeah, this is the best scene in the whole episode for me, and in an episode that's really filled with great scenes. Pretty much gonna just sort of echo what you said. But wait a minute. What was your what's worse about Bella Ramsey early on in the season, that she can only do these tough girl roles?
Boy, I got to eat that one.
Yeah, you sure do. You sure do. And I know in the book section last week, I kind of complained about not getting this scene because I was expecting it right after they got the knife. And I think my biggest grievance was just not really getting to see Tulio really attacked by the specters and kind of have us watch from start to finish what happens to a human when a specter's attack. Still think they kind of missed an opportunity there, but this scene made up for what I was missing just with Bella's performance. It was so good. She can do vulnerable, and she did it extremely, extremely well. And we did not get to see Lyanna Mormont show so much emotion. Man, like I said earlier, she could and should be nominated for something just for this scene alone, this minute-long scene. She's better than Daphne Keane in this episode, by a lot. I agree. I think I heard that she actually auditioned to be Lyra too, and man, I'm not saying I wish we could go back and change that, because I really am enjoying Daphne Keane, but just what she did for us today, or in this episode, just makes me, now I'm really thinking back on the whole series and what she would have done with some of the other scenes, and man, she's going places. She's going to have a wonderful career. Go Bella Ramsey.
I couldn't say it any better than that. Let's go on to Mary, who's needing to find some truth for herself. So where do you go when you're a former nun and you're a scientist who's been told that where doesn't theology and science meet? You go to the Bible. She finds out that she's crafty. If she's got to play the serpent, well, the serpent's crafty. She doesn't quite know how to take that. But fortunately, Sis comes over. She doesn't have the kids with them this time, so she can't tempt them with any those were healthy treats. Those were muesli treats. So all she did was lie. And wonder if Mary headed back to the Covenant. She's wondering if Mary's making a plan to return. Mary says, no, but she might be getting out of town for a while. Lyra's got a demon to talk to. Will's got Lyra to talk to. Mary needs somebody to talk to, so why not a sister? I love it.
This is a nice scene. I thought that was another funny moment. I keep remembering other funny moments throughout this recording, but that was just funny, crafty. That was pretty cute and funny. I laughed. And yeah, I like that she gets to tell her sister, oh yeah, I'm probably going to go away. And I don't know. Sometimes I wonder about people who take these journeys. Do they tell anybody? Are they going to have people worried about them? And no, not in this case. She let her sister know she's going to be gone for a while, so no one's going to be there worried about her and looking for her. That makes me happy.
There was something you brought up in an earlier podcast, and I don't remember which section, but I think it's pretty safe to talk about here in the TV-only section, even if we did put it in the book section. But everybody else has some kind of tie to their world where, if adventures are to happen on other worlds, they still have something to come back to. Here we see Mary. She's going to embark on this adventure on her own by the end of this episode. And seeing this sister, gives you the emotional context to give her a reason to come back.
Yeah.
Her sister, her kids. And I know that you mentioned that in an earlier podcast at some point, so I just wanted to reiterate that.
That's weird. I don't remember saying that, but cool if I did.
Speaking of cool, it gets cool at night in Chitakaze. There's a terrible segue, but I'm using it anyway. So night falls on Chitakaze, and Will's feeling his missing fingers there. He's kind of looking down at him. He's checking him out. It's not cool. He then calls to Lyra and tells her it's time to go. We're going to link a whole bunch of stuff together, so Holly, just stop me anywhere you want to stop and comment. But Will says he doesn't want to hurt anyone. Lyra says, no, we got to stay on mission, man. Stay on mission. We then cut back to Boreal's house, and Coulter's back. She's miffed. And the golden monkey's finally been let out of his room. He's miffed. And the monkey still offers condolences because that's what the monkey always seems to have to do.
Okay,
and,
stop. This is the only other part of the episode I felt bad for the monkey. I felt like he was really needing some comfort for her, for her abandoning him. And then when she returns, like, he's mad and sad, and then he also sees that she's mad and sad, and then it kind of turns into like, oh, I need comfort, but I also see you need comforting, like, do you want to hug it out? And then she just walks away, and he was like, okay, I'm sad still. And that was it. That's it for me feeling sorry for the monkey. That's it. No more.
Yeah, you can't offer condolences to a double M.
Double M?
A miffed Marisa. Meanwhile, outside the house, Will and Lyra, they're just outside the window. They're doing a little scout. They're cutting a little window, but they realize that they're just a little bit too high as compared to Boreal's den, so they need to go to the lower levels of the tower. Back in Boreal's house, Coulter's kicking off her shoes and she wants a drink. That's what you do when you're anybody and you're miffed. Boreal seems miffed himself, and he pours her a drink anyway. And Coulter talks about Mary. She finds her impertinent, intelligent, free. Getting more upset with each word that she says. God, what a great acting job.
Yes.
But, anytime there's three words put together, Holly also gets upset by the time we get to the third word. So when we play three words, when she gets to the third word, she'll be practically bawling, and we'll have to stop the podcast for a second so she can collect herself.
I don't like them because the three words are impertinent. I'm not intelligent enough to come up with them, and I can't wait to be free of them.
Boreal's magisterium is showing up again, his magisterium side, his man-gesterium, as he appraises Mary Malone. That's not cool. By the way, calling her arrogant and all of those other things. And Coulter fights back by giving him a story or two about how she was denied a doctorate by the magisterium despite having the best grades, how she was only allowed a paper to be published if a man's name was put on it. And then she brings up Azrael. Again, this is really just about Marisa and her feelings. Boreal doesn't seem to understand that. Boreal's just jealous of Azrael for whatever reason.
He really does not understand. And once again, here he is just showing off his extreme misogyny. She just mentions Azrael, and he's like, why are we talking about Azrael? And she's like, we're not. We're talking about me. I can't even mention a man's name without it becoming about him. Like, what the heck? God, Boreal, get it together, man. He's
a double B.
A double B?
A blind Boreal.
Oh, yes. I was going to say a terrible listener. That didn't have any doubles, though, so.
I like yours better anyway.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
When she asks him, because what he says about Mary Malone, I was like, what did he say? He found her arrogant. And then when she asks, I was thinking it, and then she asked it, I was like, she says, well, do you think I'm arrogant? He says, oh, no. Do you think he's lying? Do you think he's just trying to pander to her?
I think that he's just trying to butter her up.
It's really hard to tell a lot of times because we know he keeps things from her purposefully, but he also does seem to be into her. So I'm like, which is it? Like, which does he feel more? Is he trying to impress her more, or is he just trying to like get close to her and get her to trust him so he can go behind her back or just get power over her? Or does he just like want to marry her and like keep her as trophy wife? Like, I get confused. In this episode, he's kind of all over the place. It seems to be more trying to like lock that down than anything, but some of the other things he says, I'm like, what is your deal? I don't know.
I don't know about Boreal either. He's either clueless or he's so conniving that he gets in his own way. That's the problem.
Well, I think he's both.
Yeah. Lyra and Will step out the layout of Boreal's room in the bowels of the tower. They find a place to take a peek, and whoa, there's Boreal sitting right there with the alethiometer right beside him. Will gets an idea. And Coulter tells Boreal how he has wasted his opportunity of finding this new world by becoming, a collector of trinkets. Essentially, what she's saying is that he really just wants a trophy wife. You want me as one of your trinkets too, right? And that even if I would allow that, you wouldn't know what to do with me.
I love that line. Oh, that's such a good line. Good for her.
Yeah, I love that too. And then ding dong, Lyra's at the door. They go rushing to the video monitors, and then Boreal goes to the door to talk to Lyra. And as he does so, all of these things are kind of mixed up as how they happen. Sorry, I got them in kind of the wrong order. But Will lets himself in with the knife. Of course, he remembers to close that pneumonia hole because Lyra insisted that you don't want to catch cold by leaving that window open. And that kind of sparks an interest in Mrs. Coulter. She's coming back out from the video monitors. She thinks she hears something. She wants to investigate. He does manage to duck her. But as he's trying to get to the alethiometer on the couch, old Golden Monkey shows up, always saving butt for Mrs. Coulter. When she's sad, he comes and he holds her hand. And when she is more concentrating on Lyra, he keeps watch on the alethiometer. Good for Golden Monkey. Lyra hears that the monkey has discovered Will, and she goes running in to the house and down into the den, forgetting that Boreal has all of the controls of the locks and can lock them all in now. And while Will is having to fend off Boreal by holding up his trinkets and cutting them in half, Mrs. Coulter is trying to explain herself to Lyra and promising that she'll explain Dust and all about Azrael killing Roger. She also says, you're so like me. And then Lyra says, she is nothing like Mrs. Coulter. And then she does the exact same thing that Mama would do. And she unleashes a superior demon on Mrs. Coulter's demon. Coulter feels it. She actually drops to the floor at first as Pan the Wolverine bites the monkey and throws it around the room, just toying the monkey's having a bad day, man. That's awful. Meanwhile, on the other side of the room, Boreal's threatening Will's mom. That gets Will pretty enraged. He tries to attack Boreal. Why would you ever try to attack somebody twice your size, whether you had a knife or not? Will nearly loses the knife to Boreal. He gets him because Boreal's got a grasp on that damaged hand. And if it weren't for the fact that Boreal had so many trinkets laying around, it might have been ended badly and Boreal would have ended up with the knife, but Will does manage to knock Boreal out with what's probably a triple P.
Triple P.
A priceless pottery piece. He grabs the alethiometer, Will does, and he cuts a window and he tells Lyra to come on. Lyra is still doing some double D.
Double D?
Demon damage. But Mrs. Coulter is starting to resist the pain. She's got that whole separation thing going on, and she thrives on pain, as we learned from Lee a couple of weeks ago. She can tolerate a lot of pain, and she's starting to raise back up. But at the last second, Lyra and Pan jump through the window that Will has made, and Will closes the window. Can I make just one quick observation here, and then I'll let you talk? I love that Daphne Keene, the Wolverine, let Pan, the Wolverine, open a can of whoop-ass.
Yes.
I thought that was perfect. You want to, we saw the Wolverine one time earlier in this season, but this one just had so much significance just because of the expression on Daphne Keene's face when she was, sicking Pan on the Golden Monkey. It reminded me so much of that Logan movie. I wonder if that was an intentional reference or not.
I feel like it is, because in the first scene that we see Pan turn into a Wolverine, that's not that in the books. It's like a big cat, like a like a large cat, like almost like a snow leopard sized cat. I remember visualizing it in the book, and it was like Pan went Stelmaria to try to intimidate these kids. But they changed it for the show, and they changed it to a Wolverine, and it's like, that feels like a Logan nod, and I'm not mad about it. And I'm not mad about it here either. Well, this scene doesn't happen like this in the books at all, so they could have done whatever they wanted, but I liked it a lot. I thought it was, man, savage.
I loved it too. What else you got on this?
Kind of a lot. There's a lot that happens. Another sort of funny moment, it's like a blink and you miss it, is when in the time where Will is caught by the golden monkey and then Mrs. Coulter walks in, he has this like quick little line that is like, watch out, like he's vicious, like trying to warn Mrs. Coulter away from the monkey because he just didn't make the connection that that's her demon. And I just thought that was funny. And then he's like, oh, and then the monkey hands her the alethiometer and he's like, oh, never mind. So I thought that was another like blink and you miss it kind of funny moment. I didn't really have a great place to put this in the notes, but the whole episode, they did a really good job of silently conveying that Will is just managing the pain in his hand. Like, there's just been a bunch of shots throughout the episode where he's just like looking at his bandaged hand and not saying anything, but it hurts and it's still bleeding. That blood, on the bandage looks fresh and red as if it's like still bleeding. And I'm going to say, yeah, they've maybe at least changed the bandage at least a couple of times by now, I would hope. So just kind of knowing that, like, his hand is hurting, and then Boreal, like, is like holding his hand and hurting even more. I was just like, God, I was really feeling the pain for him. And then not just the Wolverine aspect, but just everything. How it's also funny that Lyra does the little snarl move right before Pan attacks, and just like Mrs. Coulter would. And this whole thing is just great. I love this. Some people may not like it because they don't see Lyra as being like this type of person that would just fight so viciously, but I feel like she earned it, and Mrs. Coulter and that demon definitely earned it and had it coming. So not mad about it at all. And it was really intense watching it and just watching like him grab and shake the monkey, and as somebody who deals with animals that get in real fights and having to see the aftermath, this was really intense for me to actually watch, even though they're all CGI characters and animals. It was still like, oh God, it was hurting me. I was imagining where I would be placing drains and stuff to like help these poor animals after they were done with this fight.
Well, and again, I'll reiterate this part. Lee told Mrs. Coulter a couple of weeks ago, he said, no, they wouldn't be able to break you with pain.
No, yes. That's the other.
And
thank you.
Some of those bites that Pan was putting on that monkey, and yet towards the end of that, she's just about separated herself from it completely. That's not some demon Lyra world connection. That points straight back to that scene with her and Lee about how she's been so abused before that this is really nothing to her after she gets over the shock of it.
Thank you for saying that. I got so wrapped up in just thinking about that moment again, but I also, that was the first thought I had was like, oh, that conversation with Lee, like, here she is feeling that pain, and she would come back for more because she loves Lyra, and, it's quite different than the abuser-victim relationship that she had growing up, but it was a great callback to that conversation that they had. And, oh man, just so much in this scene. And again, Ruth Wilson just showing how she's in pain, but also somehow conveying that she is kind of willing herself to take it and not do anything more to fight back, but like to stand up, and the willpower it took for her to like just do that. And damn, this whole scene is incredible.
It absolutely is. It was on so many levels, just so not wonderful. It was horrifying. I actually, one of my biggest horrors at the end, because I was so just emotional about all of it. It was at the end. I was like, Pan was clear across the other side of the room, and Lyra is starting to run through the window, and I'm like thinking, wait a minute, don't leave Pan behind. And somehow magically Pan, just right as Lyra's going through the window, Pan ends up right behind her. That was a little bit of a trick, but other than that, it still didn't take away any of the emotion for me.
Same.
And we talked about how, this may not be the Lyra that we want to see come out of her all of the time, but they kind of address that when we see them again in Chitakaze. Will's hand is obviously hurting, and Lyra knows that in the middle of the night, when your hand is in pain, and you want to be able to sleep so that you can not feel the pain anymore, you need a cup of coffee. That's exactly what Will needs at this moment. But thanks, Will, for helping her to get the truth teller back. That's a double T, the alethiometer, I mean. And they talk about what kind of person that Mama seems to bring out of Lyra and why. And here's where I love this. I feel like that this conversation, if you had any disgruntlings about Lyra's actions in the prior scene, she says she doesn't want to be like either of her parents. She'd rather be more like Ma Costa and Lee Scoresby. Wow. And it didn't feel good being like her mom. And that one got me too. And then Will says the perfect thing. He just basically says, be you, Lyra. You do you. Anybody would be lucky to be like you. And then Lyra once again pledges to help Will find his dad. She promises it. Promise. Mean it. All that stuff. The Ma Costa and Lee shout out. But the Ma Costa especially. I miss that character. I know the Egyptians had to leave Bolvanger and take care of those children. I love them for that. But I wish we had more Ma Costa in this series right now, because she was fantastic in last season. So
I do too. I liked Ma Costa a lot. I felt like there was a change, and I noticed it from the get-go this episode, but do you feel like Lyra started to change the way, maybe, I don't know, there's something different about Lyra when she's around Will now since last episode? Like, she just seems a little bit softer. And not that she, was doing anything wrong to him before. I just feel like now like I said, softer. Like, there's only a really phrase I can think of. It was just like, I guess she's just trying extra hard to be there for him, maybe because she feels bad for having betrayed him and having caused all this trouble that now they have to get, she feels bad he got his fingers cut off so they can get the alethiometer back and all of that, but she just feels different when she's around Will this episode. Also, Pan, every time it's like the three of them, he's Red Panda Lyman every time now that he's like with Will. So, interesting. I don't remember if we talked about that last week or not.
Oh, I didn't think about that, Holly. It's the what demon form comes out with Will? Is that showing a sense of her affection, possibly?
I think so. And we saw it start this season. We haven't seen Pan ever be a red panda Lyman until this season, until they meet Will. And now every scene that the three of them have, he's almost always a red panda, and with the exception of the fight, I think that was his only other form this episode. Am I right?
I think you're right. I think you are correct. Now, I don't know if I can speak to, Will obviously doesn't have a demon to change forms to show how he feels, but I can tell you, as boys know, because this is an episode all about boys, is it not? But the Spectres are definitely going to be coming for Will soon, because he's growing up. He's starting to use those complimentary pickup lines that all those boys who realize they like girls use. Anyone would be lucky to be you. I mean, you better mean that, buddy, because I'm very protective of Lyra. You better mean that. You better not just be, getting your Spectres amped up. That's all I'm saying.
Look, Will is not like the other boys, okay? He will punch kids that make fun of his mom. He will punch kids that try to hurt a cat. And he will punch anyone that tries to hurt Lyra. I think that's good, dude.
All right.
Those are good punching reasons.
Those are good punching reasons. Sounds good to me. Back in the other world, when Coulter's upset, Boreal's upset, the monkey and the snake are probably upset too. Coulter wants to go after Will and Lyra naturally. Boreal, he had warned her to be quick when they were crossing over in Chitakaze before, but he says, we can't go there. I mean, I couldn't get the knife before because there were people all around, but now I can't go there because there are specters. and he explains everything about the specters and what they do. And Coulter figures out what they're linked to. She mouths the word, well, she actually says the word dust, and Boreal just doesn't get it. So once again, the woman has to teach the man something here. Once something is understood, it can be mastered. Obviously, Boreal will never achieve that because he doesn't seem to understand anything. And she tells him not to get all bunched up in a wad over a teenager beating him. They have no choice but to go after the kids. And my question to you, Holly, is when she says dust, it's like she's figured out what makes the specters tick. So is dust essentially, since they're only going after adults, and we know from Azrael's pictures that dust doesn't fall on the kids, it only falls on the adults. Is that what the specters are hunting? Are they hunting the dust, or is this any indication of how she thinks she can control them?
The first part of your question, I don't know. That's interesting to think that they're like physically eating the dust, the particles. You mean like the shadow particles? Like they're consuming them, the consciousness of the.
Well, I don't know if that's what. I just as saying, the same way that deep sea fish are attracted to light things. Is that what, regardless of what the meal actually is? Is it the dust that's attracting the specters to the adults in Chitakaze?
I think yes, when you frame it that way.
Yeah, I phrased it poorly earlier. Sorry.
Yeah, because I saw it as her making that connection between demon settling and specters' food cooked to the perfect temperature or whatever. As so, how she thinks she can control them, because she knows what to do with the demon settling. Like, she's worked out that problem in her world. So I think in my mind, she's like, oh, I've worked this out in my world. I can work this out here. It's all relative. Like, I can figure it out. I think she knows a way to get around this. And I'll talk about more about that in the book section too.
Alrighty. Well, let's move to the final scene of the episode. Mary Malone makes her way to Boreal's window, essentially. She's using the clues that were given to her at the cave. And her next task, as she looks down at her phone, deceive the Guardian. So she easily bluffs her way past the guard by posing as Mrs. Coulter because, guards, way to go, way to do your job. And then she finds the window as she goes through the tent, as she finds the window on the other side, and suddenly she steps into Chitakaze at night, where we know there are specters. First of all, it's not a good episode if you root for men being smart. There's not a single smart man in this episode except for Will.
And you can argue he's not a man yet, so.
Oh, that's true. So maybe there's not, because the specters haven't gone after him yet, even though he can kind of see wisps. There's not a single smart man in this episode. When you think of all of the swarms of specters that we've seen as viewers, not just through the eyes of other adults, where were they? Oh, yeah, there was that one phrase that the angel said right before they blinked out at the cave, saying she would be protected. So I guess that's what's going on here?
I was hoping to see redacted here, but maybe next week.
And with that, we will pick up that discussion in the book section, maybe. I love it. Mrs. Coulter gave 3 words. Now it's time for Holly to play the game that we love. 3 words. Holly, what would your 3-word description of this episode be?
This would be from the POV of Mrs Coulter, and it's denim, no thanks.
Now, in real life, Holly, are you a denim girl or no?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. My Twitter handle is Hunt Pants because I exclusively wear pants.
No dresses for Holly.
Very, very rare dresses for Holly.
All right. Let me give you my 3 words. It's all about girls. I mean, you've got the brilliant writing and directing of Gardner and Wellham. You've got a story that's all about Marissa, Mary, and Lyra in a lot of ways. We learned lots and lots about how dumb some of us boys are. I'll include myself in that category. I love that this was written from a female perspective completely, and how it was excellently portrayed by the best actresses in the show. And at the same time that you have those girls giving us some girl power, Bella Ramsey gave us some real acting power. Just made me cry and scared the heck out of me. I know I already said that, but man, what a scene. This episode was all about the girls, and I loved it.
Nice ones.
We're moving on to 3 words submitted to our friends, mostly from the UK, I believe, who got a chance to submit early because they do get the episodes a week earlier than us. And folks, I'm being all inclusive. I'm not going to exclude anybody who submitted something to us this week. I'm putting you all in the contest, whether you came up with 3 words or not. That's why we're lumping our 3 words and our feedback all together. Our friend at Dragonfell UK, that's Jonathan, returns once again with another great 3 words: intense, game-changing, that's hyphenated, drama. So thank you very much at Dragonfell UK, who also adds this. It was kind of a tweet out to a whole bunch of us, of the podcasters, who said we might get a bench a week, because we did have a bench this episode also.
Wait, where was it?
Will and Lyra were sitting at the bench in Chitakaze when he was talking after what Angelica had said.
Oh, right. Dang. So they are teasing with the benches.
I mean, so many benches, and we can't even talk about why here.
I know. Not yet.
Thank you so much at Dragonfell UK. His Dork Material, or at His Dork Material, it's His Dork Materials on Twitter, says, for episode 5, grippingly beyond tense. Excellent. Love it.
Mm-hmm.
A new tweeter here, a new submission. At Lisa Senior, that's Lisa who submits this. Not having read the books, I'm on Tinderhooks all episode. Fabulous way to spend a Sunday evening when the kids are in bed and the hubby is playing online poker. My 3 words: finished the bottle. So did Holly.
Yes!
My 3 word response to that is, so did Holly.
Oh my God, that's so good. Welcome.
Yeah,
I'm so glad you're
thanks for
enjoying the
tweeting to
show. Please, yes, thank you.
You're in our contest. Another new one. I love this one too.
Yay.
This one is from at War10RZ.
Yeah, that's like Warriors, but they were clever.
Yeah.
They spelled it clever with the numbers.
With
their
using
favorite
numbers
number.
and a Z instead of an S. Excellent. But I love this submission. Forgot to breathe. Excellent. That's great.
Yes.
That's fantastic. One a little more literal here. At We Need EU. Yes, I'm all for European Union myself. Monkey wears seatbelt. Love it. That's excellent. Our friend Mylene, who is at Mile with a Y _L_V, says, baffled, unnecessary, over-Coulterized. Difficult for me not to be critical about this episode, but I don't know. I fail to see the reasoning behind the choices made in this episode. So Mylene was not a fan of this adaptation of the sequences, I suppose.
Hey, that's okay. I was not a fan of like that much of last week, and I felt like I was in the minority there, so I don't know. That's okay.
Yeah, I mean, totally respect that, for sure. Another new one, Narissa, Suku. It's at Narissa _SOOKOO. Says 3 words to describe episode 5 would be, we'll give them a dash here: heartbreaking, breathtaking, and intense. Excellent.
Yes.
Excellent. Our friend Miles comes back with another 3 words here. That's at McLeod _Miles with a Y. 3 words: dramatic, empowering, tense. I like the empowering mention there. That's awesome.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Miles also added this: thoroughly enjoyed it, nail-biting at the end. And, of course, Miles always comments on the music, too. Music, as always, dramatic and empowering and fantastic acting by Ruth Wilson. Love it, love it, love it. At Michael VK, our friend who works on the show and submits 3 words. Sometime we got to get Lauren Balfe to submit 3 words for us, too.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I love this one, too. Edge of Seat. By the way, Michael VK has said he will not accept our gift if he were to win the contest. So we appreciate that. We appreciate that you're wanting other listeners of the show to win.
I just want to say I really appreciate how much fun Michael VK seems to be having, both having worked on the show and then being a spectator. And that just makes my heart very happy as a big fan of the show. I like to see people love the stuff they work on. So
yeah,
thank you for participating with us. It's been really great.
Yeah, and so many of the people who work on this show are active. Jack Thorne, Dan McLeod, all of these people. Michael, Lauren Balfe always gets into it on Sundays. Also, if you watch his Twitter on Sundays, he's always appreciative and comments directly to people on with their comments about the music or what have you. Always offers up stuff that that's insightful in the way that you see the lyric translations for some of the things that are being sung on the show, from Latin to English. He's a great follow, as is Michael VK, so be sure to follow him. Again, that's at Michael VEEKAY 1. He does great.
I'll say it just adds to my experience as a viewer, knowing, and I'm sorry, I'm just being redundant, but it just makes me really happy when the people who work on the thing I love are also loving it and enjoying it as much as we are, and it just in turn makes the show even better. Absolutely.
The whole crowd over there are great follows. Somebody I follow religiously tweeted at us this week, and I love Ian and Amy and the Dark Material Pod. They are fantastic. We love Girls Gone Canon. We love the Dark Material Podcast. There's so many great podcasts out there. We're really thankful that people even take the time to listen to us, let alone tweet at us. And at Dark Material Pod, that's Ian and Amy. I'm not sure which one of them sent us this tweet, but said the writers this week already gave us a 3-word description. Impertinent, intelligent, free. Love it.
See, they also agreed that our 3 words is impertinent. Actually, looking forward to hearing Ian and Amy's take on the song choice that we discussed earlier. Maybe they'll have better takes on it than we do.
Yeah. I mean, there are so many fabulous podcasts out there. Why are you even listening to us, especially to me? Holly, I can see.
Especially to me. No, it's the other way. Everybody's here for your music. I'm Christina J. Samuel at Chris1989 Jean says, loved it. Fab as well.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Christina. Laura Silvertongue, who has been a good friend to the podcast as well, at Laws with a Z 0908 says, a solid mid-season episode that covers some necessary plot points and has some nice moments, but feels like a come down from the past couple of weeks. Needed more Mary, less Man-gesterium. Feel like I'll judge it more kindly on future rewatches of the whole season. Well, we could say needed more Mary is a good 3-word description right there.
I'll agree with that for this episode. Not that I have a lot of criticism for it, but I would have been happier with more Mary. And then the less Magisterium, I'll take what we got for this episode because it was enough.
I mean, it was one scene.
I know, that's why. If we went back we go back to some past episodes, there'd be a lot more I would maybe take a little bit away from, but...
Yeah, right on. Well, at Ringwraith 100, I'm going to butcher that name eventually. I'm going to say something like Wingwraith or something weird if I keep trying to say that fast. But at Ringwraith 100, wanted to respond to our podcast from last week saying, just finished listening to the episode covering episode 3. Love the musical analysis. Thanks very much for making my car ride better. Glad you're listening to us in the car, but be careful. Don't get distracted too much. Don't yell back at me too much while you're driving. You might get distracted and have an accident. Don't do that.
Where are people supposed to listen to podcasts, Matt? That's where I listened to you for years and years and years, was in the car.
Oh boy.
I know.
Have your insurance rates gone up dramatically?
No.
Because most people, their reaction to listening to me in a car is, they start screaming at me because I'm so pointless and senseless. And then, they get distracted. They don't even see the road in front of them anymore.
Wow. I think you're overestimating people's anger with you on a podcast. I don't think that happens like that.
I think I'm overestimating my importance in general. But and I could ask, what's worse of those two things? But instead, we'll ask these what's worse questions. This is the game that Holly hates a little bit less than 3 words. She's not brought to tears by the time she gets to her second worst what's worse, I don't think, like she is by the time she gets to the end of her third word in a 3-word submission. But we play a game where we ask what in this episode was worse. One person asks the question, the other person gets to pick a side and argue that, and then the person who asks the question is left with the leftovers and must argue that side. It's a fun game. We want your what's worse. Send some to us so we can just argue, we can draw names as to who picks a side first. Or don't. You just enjoy ours and vote on our polls. We pin these to our profile page every week when a new episode airs on HBO Max and HBO. Holly, you or me first? Because I have 2, and one of them I will just let the audience decide on their own, but the other one we're going to have to argue. So what do you want to do first?
You go first.
All right, here's the one we've got to argue. What's worse? Being abused by your human, if you're a demon? Or being abused by your demon son, if you're a demon? Poor golden monkey. Had a bad day.
See, I can only answer this from Mrs. Coulter's perspective because circumstances. So, man, I can't believe I'm going to do this. I'm going to defend the monkey. Being abused by your human is worse.
Well, the monkey's getting abused in both cases.
Yes, but the monkey is also a jerk to...
Well, it's not like...
Monkey started it
Monkey
with Pam
did start
last
it.
season.
Yeah, Monkey does start it often. So, okay, so you're saying being abused by Mrs. Coulter. But why?
But why? Because you clearly have... Oh, I don't know, this is hard. I now have to argue mental health. I'm not qualified to do that. It's awful. You can't... If you're being abused by your human, you can't, trust them. You can't comfort them. You never know what you're going to do next that's going to set them off and get, the next beat down from them. It's a scary and terrible way to live. It's worse than being abused by your demon son because, your demon son is trying to stay away from you all the time, so you really don't get to see them very often. But being abused by a human who you typically need to, stay near all the time, unless she just abandons you, and then you have to deal with the separation. It's awful all the time if you're being abused by your human.
I'm just saying that there's more than one issue involved when you're a demon and your demon son comes at you. Because not only, this is your demon son. And if I understand the lore correctly, you named him, or you helped name him. I don't know how this monkey could possibly help name Pan. But nonetheless, that's what I'm told happens, that the demon parents name the demon, and the human parents name the human. Am I correct in that?
Yeah, you are correct. I'm just going to assume the monkey just mouthed the word, or I don't know.
Well, maybe Stelmaria said the word, and the monkey just nodded.
Nodded, yeah.
That's perhaps what happened with that. But okay, so you've gone to all this trouble. You and your counterpart demon have brought this demon into the world. You've named him, and not only does your son come back and bite the crap out of you and beat the crap out of you, it's also, psychologically damaging to this poor monkey because he can't do the things that his son can do anymore. He can't change. He can't defend himself properly. He can't do any of that. It's horrible. This poor demon, monkey demon, he's stuck in that form, and by golly, for all he knows, Pan can become an elephant if it wants to and trash the whole place. It's not fair. It's totally not fair.
Pan can choose his form, and I think ultimately the demons do get to choose their own form. So he chose being a monkey. The monkey chose to be a monkey, so you can't argue that. And then as far as everything else, that all stems back from the abusive human that he has that caused all those problems with his demon son. So, I mean, really, it all comes back to the human. It's all her fault. It's all Mrs. Coulter's fault.
I think I have a very good shot at winning this.
No.
Much like Donald Trump won this election by a lot.
Okay, yes. Okay.
And so we're going to put it to the poll anyway, which I will clearly win by a lot. But the question is, what's worse, being abused by your human if you're a demon, or being abused by your demon son if you're a demon? Holly, how about your question?
All right, mine is just still along the lines of denim. It's the theme of this episode. So, what's worse, Coulter's lack of potential in her own world, or she could trade in for this new world, have all the potential to get really, really high up in the world and to be a successful scientist or whatever she wanted to be. She could do it, but she would have to have a terrible wardrobe while doing it.
Ooh, I think I'm going to choose the not having the potential in her old world, in her own world. That's got to be so detrimental to women everywhere. Think of how many potential Mrs. Coulters there are in Lyra's world. Lyra among them. How she was getting an education at Jordan, the more I look at it, I'm wondering if it wasn't just done because Azrael said scholastic sanctuary, regardless of what they wanted to do. Even though I do feel like Lyra was somewhat loved at Jordan, it feels horrible that this MAN-gesterium places these restrictions on women who is obviously evidenced by this episode are not nearly as dumb as the men are. So I think that being cheated of the lack of potential in her, or being cheated of potential in her own world, is definitely worse.
Okay, I got this one in the bag. Just saying, because she would have to wear jeans. Okay, jeans. Who's gonna take her seriously in jeans? But she's gonna be like some sort of physicist that gets to go to work in jeans every day, and people are gonna take her seriously. Are they taking Mary Malone seriously? No, they want to not fund her and make her quit her research.
You may have me there. You may have me. And we'll just put this one up for you to decide on your own. We won't take a side in this argument. But what's worse, Boreal's pettiness over his collection or his taste in music?
God, taste in music for me.
I really enjoyed the comedy of him being so pretentious about his collection.
It was so funny. Yes. Or just being pretentious about the sound system. It's like, man, that's something we don't hear about really at all in these first two books, is anything about musicians in Lyra's world. So
yeah,
I just wonder how, even what kind of different instruments they have from one world to the next. And
ooh, interesting. I'll tell you what. What I'm wondering is, you have Ambaric and you have Electric, right? So what do they call Dolby surround sound in Lyra's world?
I don't know.
Yeah, I haven't a clue. Hey, send us your ideas. Tweet to @thedustpodcast on Twitter, or send an email to dustpodcast@gmail.com. There's no the in that. Don't try that with the Gmail. It won't work. Just dustpodcast@gmail.com, or you can call 314-269-0421 and tell us what your favorite Lighthouse family song is.
I don't know, but you know what? I bet you they have a band called Ambaric Lights Orchestra.
Bam! And there it is. And we took care of all our feedback in the 3-word section, so we're going to skip that. Guess what? We're also going to skip the music section for this podcast. They've been running so long, and I'm barely having time to get the thing edited and put up in time for you to hear it shortly after you've watched the episode. And so I'm going to stick my musical analysis. Well, okay. Here's the real reason. There were so many great little pieces of music in this one. I just couldn't decide on one. And so I've got to think about it. And so I'll get you a music section in the Second Look podcast. Hey, if you're into the music, that's incentive for you to download those Second Look podcasts too. I always include a little something in there, but you'll get a much more thorough one this week. So check that out. And as I mentioned, the Dust Podcast is the Twitter at the Dust Podcast. It's where you'll find our polls. We try to have fun with you and respond to you. We get DMs. If you're a UK person and you don't want to spoil maybe some of your US followers about an advanced episode, we don't care if you spoil us. I mean, you're not really spoiling us technically anyway, since we've both read the books. And, you can always send us a DM. If you just tweet at us to follow you, we'll follow you. You can send us a DM. And unless you try to sell us something from Sears, then we're probably going to keep following you too. So there you go.
It depends on what it is from Sears, if I'm being honest.
Jeans?
It's not jeans. Some Levi Strauss. No.
Okay. But speaking of, lowbrow wear, we are part of the Double P family of podcasts. And you can find them and all of the things that they're covering at the word double, the letters PHQ on Twitter. You can go to facebook.com/the word double, letters PHQ. And you can find our videos on their YouTube channel as well. Well, maybe after Bubba listens to this podcast, we might not be on there anymore. So you might want to go to their YouTube and check. We do want you to subscribe to them. It's very important that you subscribe to their YouTube. They need the numbers. And we want you to check out their Mandalorian podcast entitled Parsec Passion. That's Bubba and Catfish, two people who I've had a great number of fun years doing different podcasts with. I love doing podcasts with Catfish. Bubba basically proved to me how good he was at doing podcasts and then left to do his own. He used to be a staple in some of my older podcasts as a guest. And then he said, well, you can come on my podcast network, I guess. Maybe. I don't know. Okay, I guess I'll let you on. But anyway, we love Bubba and Catfish, and they are covering The Mandalorian. It's a podcast called Parsec Passion. Try and say that 3 times real fast.
Parsec Passion.
And not cough. And then if you don't want to mess around with them, you can always contact us personally as well, especially me. If you want to berate me, I'm good at taking beratement. I'm also good at giving it back. You can find me at Musical Concepts, and you can find Holly where?
You can find me at Hunt Pants, where I'll be wearing all the denim, and my Twitter handle is finally not weird for once, weirdly.
All of the denim mentions, that's weirdly weird. We've got a book reader section, book readers only, after the end music, so stick around for that if you're a book reader, because we've got a couple of things to say regarding this episode in terms of the books. We'll see you next time on
The Dust Podcast.
Tweet the podcast at The Dust Podcast. Send emails to dustpodcast@gmail.com or call 314-269-0421. Please subscribe, rate, and review wherever you get your podcasts. Part of Double P Media, doublepmedia.com.
You're still here. You're a book reader. Wait, no? You're a TV person who wants to be spoiled about comparisons with the books? No? Well, I don't get why you're here. We don't want to hurt you. We do not want to panize your golden monkey. So get the heck out of here, or else you're going to get spoilers. In 3, 2, 1. Holly, the first thing I want to bring up, and this is, I don't know, this is a weird thing for me, because you and I as book readers have known that the golden monkey is never officially named by Philip Pullman in any of the series, correct?
Correct, except for the radio play adaptations, right?
We do get a name in the radio play adaptations, And Radio Times in the UK reported on the day of the UK airing, which was December 6th, that if you had the subtitles on while you were watching it, I don't know if on iPlayer or maybe on your television during the BBC airing, you saw the same name that was used in the BBC radio play. And I'm going to butcher the heck out of this. Ozymandias?
Yep, Ozymandias.
Ozymandias.
It's my favorite episode of Breaking Bad.
Wow. So there's a Breaking Bad episode that is also named after the play by Percy Shelley? Is that who did that play? Or the poem?
Yes. Yeah.
So this was the name that was used in that BBC radio play adaptation. But the Radio Times also says that Philip Pullman did not like that name very much. And I'll be honest, I've done very little substantiating as to, whether these captions were actually on there or not. I have not looked at the captions yet, so I can't, with any credibility say, yeah, it's there, or whether somebody's just trying to pull a prank. But Radio Times thought it worthy of reporting. So that's the only credibility I've got regarding that. Now, as far as that name, Ozymandias, goes, there was a BBC4 web chat a few years ago where Philip Pullman was taking questions. And this confirms that he did not choose the name for that BBC radio play either. The question came from Angela Noel, who said, in the books, the name of Mrs. Coulter's demon is never given, and in the dramatization, his name is given as Ozymandias. Is this taken from Shelley's poem? And Pullman's response was, I didn't choose the name, and to be frank, I don't think I would have done. I imagine that the scriptwriter did get it from Shelley's poem, but you'd really have to ask her why she went for that name. I'll give a link for that. And I also picked this up on Reddit, another quote from Philip Pullman. The golden monkey doesn't have a name because every time I tried to think of one, he snarled and frightened me. Now, the validity of anything on Reddit, who knows? But I just wanted to ponder these because if that did show up in the credits, you can think a couple of things. This is the BBC saying, well, we've got a radio program where the monkey is named, and so if there's something where we need a descriptor or something like that, like Ozymandias squeals or something like that, then maybe that's why they did that. Why not just use golden monkey? I'm not sure. And is it that big of a deal to book readers or not? I don't know either. To me, it's not. I could really care less. But I just wondered, Holly, as a book reader, did it affect you in any way learning this news?
Not particularly, just because it already existed in Philip Pullman's work adjacently, I guess you could say, whether he chose it or not. And I didn't watch this particular episode yet with the captions on, so I think another test we could do is look in the credits. Now I know he doesn't have any, there won't be any voice credits, but do they, maybe if they specify specific graphic designers that work on him and work on his CGI stuff, if they named it in the credits or not, I don't know. I know some book readers will be mad about it because some book readers are going to be mad about anything that's different. Not that that's anything wrong with that. Just there's always someone mad about something.
Well, what we'll do for the Second Look podcast, I will make sure to check the HBO credits. Because, again, this was the BBC, and it was over a week ago from the airing of the HBO. Maybe this is a Starbucks coffee cup thing. Maybe HBO will change it before they put or have changed it before they put their captions up. We'll just have to see.
Interesting. Yes.
So,
yes.
If you don't know what I mean by Starbucks coffee cup issue, then you haven't watched the 8th season of Game of Thrones, or you didn't follow it when it was live airing. because all of that has been cleaned up by HBO as well, where there were things that shouldn't have been in the shots that were in the shots, or maybe more recently in The Mandalorian, where some crewman ended up in a shot, and that was wiped up in one day by Disney.
I missed that completely.
Yeah, I never saw it either.
I wouldn't have known about it if it wasn't for our good friends, Bubba and Catfish.
What have you got for me here?
Okay, not a lot of stuff, but I do have like I said, I thought overall these changes were great, but I did miss a couple of things. So in the books, the way this goes down is completely different if you're here, show watcher, and have not read the books. Will does use Lyra as a distraction, but does not put her in the house. Lyra's basically like waiting outside, and they have like a second window cut so they can like both escape through it. So Lyra's kind of watching near a window outside the house, like looking in, and Will just cuts a window from outside in Chitagaze to get inside the house, and then comes back and comes through a window. Well, he does get caught by the monkey, but Lyra's not inside. Lyra's distracting them by throwing rocks at the window so he could like grab the alethiometer. Anyway, when he tries to escape, he gets outside, and as they're trying to close the window, the monkey comes through and is like reaching through the window, like to get to Will, and Will is like trying to like slash at his face. And then, but the cat that brought them through the window in the first place, the cat that they saved from the kids in Chitagaze, comes back one more time to help his friends, and basically the cat pounces on the monkey, starts scratching at his face, and they're able to escape. So I just missed that. I missed that little bit with the cat. It's not even Will's cat. It's not Will's murder cat, Moxie. This is just the tabby cat that likes to follow them around everywhere. And like I just missed that. It just would have brought it full circle, even though the cat wasn't really present in all of the scenes in the show like it was in the book, but very important to that particular scene. Kind of missed it. Also, like I said earlier, Will is by himself inside, and he's like cut a window inside, and he's kind of like hiding behind this couch, and he's just like overhearing this conversation between Boreal and Mrs. Coulter, and he hears and at this time he doesn't, or maybe he does know that this is Lyra's mom, but he's just hearing her voice, and he's thinking like, wow, she must be this incredibly beautiful woman. This is what her voice sounds like. And he notices that there's another presence in there, it being the monkey, and he's kind of creeped out by it. And then when he finally gets caught and he like gets to see her beautiful face, and he's like, wow, like he's just like taken aback by her beauty, but then at the same time sees the monkey and realizes that they are one, like this beautiful human being creature and then this terrible monkey creature are the same. And it's just interesting. But they do kind of elaborate on Will's sort of enchantment by Mrs. Coulter, which is something that has been tracking through the whole series up until this point. And we saw it back in season 1, the way she kind of charmed those kids that she was taking up to Bolvangar, promising them, like with the letter writing, that scene, you remember, with Roger and the letter writing, and and just knowing, like, Lyra has told Will up until this point, like, my mother's terrible, she's awful, but then he like looks at her and he's just like, wow, like that's your mother, like, oh my god. Kind of missed that a little bit. I think we do have room for that later, so I'm not going to be too upset about it now. But those were things that like stood out to me the most, as far as like, oh, that was missing, and I kind of wish I would have gotten to see that a little bit.
Okay, I've got 2 Devil's TV advocate comments there.
Okay.
1, the fact that he was willing to defend Mrs. Coulter from the evil monkey. That wasn't enough of a tribute to that?
I it was, and it wasn't until I said it later that I was like, oh yeah, I already put this in my notes here, but, and again, it's just something you can't really, it's hard to convey in a show versus a book when you are inside their heads a little bit, versus a show where you're not really inside their head, but...
2, if Will can't see specters yet, he can't be looking at Mrs. Coulter that way.
I mean, it's not like, damn, she's fine. It's just like, wow. Yeah, have you never been struck by somebody's beauty and it's not a sexual thing? You're a dude, so no, you cannot say
Will's
that.
a dude.
He's a young man. He is a young man. He's not grown up enough. He's not grown up enough.
First grade, Mrs. Murphy. Yeah.
Aww.
She was beautiful. And not in that way, because I didn't know I didn't know anything about that at that point.
Right.
So
okay, it's that. It's basically that.
yeah.
Also, and if you think about it from Will's perspective, like, he's kind of got some mommy issues, you know? Like, he hasn't had a woman that's been able to take care of him his whole life. He's had to take care of his mother his whole life. So I think for him, she probably just represented a different kind of mother figure that he had been lacking his whole life.
Did you like the conversation then between Will and Lyra when they were back in Chitakaze and how he talked about
the way he was like, so that's your mother. Like, I was looking for every little hint of that infatuation with her throughout this episode, especially after they saw each other face to face. So I was definitely looking for that. I liked it. I thought it was quick. They didn't spend too much time on it, dwelling on it, but that's fine. I actually didn't even mention this in the show part, but by the end of the episode, I realized how much I wanted to see Lyra read the alethiometer again, because it's been so long, and I was like, oh my god, I'm so glad she has it back. Like, ask it a question. I was kind of low-key upset that she didn't ask it something right then, just so we can see her use it, but it's fine. It can wait.
Does Will like me?
Oh no, she's not going to ask that. Well,
so,
okay,
wait a minute. So you can't use the alethiometer for base purposes, just like you can't use the knife for base purposes.
No,
right?
But she's already said, and she said it this season, that if she's asking questions, the alethiometer wouldn't answer those types of questions.
Oh, okay.
They've already alluded to that.
Gotcha.
Okay, the Mrs. Coulter, a witch. No. Okay, no. I'm gonna, this is me. There is no evidence in the books that say one way or the other if Mrs. Coulter is a witch or not, or she's got any, like, witch.
So you're saying there's a chance?
Of course there's a chance, but I believe in my heart that she is not, even though the Secret Commonwealth does bring to light the fact that some people's demons will leave them, and in order to get by in this world, people will buy demons that aren't theirs just so they look normal. So I think after the Secret Commonwealth came out, a lot of people really want to believe that this is Mrs. Coulter and her monkey, like that the monkey is not actually Mrs. Coulter's demon, and maybe she had a different demon that left her or whatever, and this monkey is just like her filler. And it would, to some degree, explain the strain on their relationship, but I just personally don't feel that that's the case. And I would be upset if it was, because I think it works better this way as relates to mental health and how people, treat themselves and not...
And abuse and what have you, yeah.
Right. And I don't want it to be a retcon to explain why the golden monkey never talks. Also, it's kind of foreshadowing how humans' relationships with their demons can turn bad, like what Lyra is going to go through in the Secret Commonwealth. So... That's my opinion. Everybody has a right to their own opinion. If you disagree, I'd love to hear it. I'd love to discuss it. I just personally don't think that's the case. And I don't want it to be the case either. I would prefer this just being their messed up relationship with each other. I don't know. I think it's fun that they're dropping these hints, though. And that trilogy isn't complete, so I could be wrong by the time the third book comes out, and Philip Pullman can prove all of us wrong, or prove me wrong, and y'all right.
Well, we know that Double P is listening to us, so Phil, get on that.
Oh my God, no, he's not. Please don't listen to us, Philip Pullman. I love your work.
Earlier, we talked about specters and what they're hunting. Would you elaborate on that further, please?
Yes. Okay. It's not necessarily what they're hunting, although I do think that maybe they are eating dust. I just never thought about it that way before. And by dust, like consciousness, and which is why you're left without a conscious and you're just like standing there. So that does kind of explain it, even though I never thought about it like that. Just from the book perspective, I think Mrs. Coulter is able to master them because in the books, she's going to use her guards that went through intercision. Mm-hmm. And I think I even read a quote straight from the book last week that just says she can dominate them because they know that she can give them more of what they need in the long run if they just leave her alone. And yeah, and then you could also look at her, Mrs. Coulter, relationship with her demon and how she kind of lacks her own humanity by the distance they have, that she can just kind of, whatever she has, they don't want because it tastes bad, okay? It's got taste bad to the specters. They don't want it. Mm. They want yummy demons. Monkey is not a yummy demon. He's a gross demon.
All right. So when Lyra comes, this poses the question again. When Lyra comes of age, if she were to come of age in Chitagase, are the specters going after her or her demon?
They're going after her.
Okay. So they go after her and they go, and Lyra becomes
Well, I only know that because it's going to happen with a witch probably in the next episode, or next couple of episodes if they follow the books. It happens with one of Seraphina's witches, and the demon's nowhere near, but the witch is attacked, and the witch is done after that. So
there's a couple of shots from the trailers that show a whole bunch of Magisterium men. They're obviously in the Chitagase world. They're in the more tropical world. You see shots of them chasing Lee and Japuri in the balloons, but you also see shots of just men who are kind of just, they all seem very uniform or anything. Is that probably going to be Mrs. Coulter's soldiers?
It could be. I haven't watched the trailers in a long time.
If you're a book reader and you have speculations about how they can adapt the rest of this book to fit in this season, feel free to tweet at The Dust Podcast, or you can send emails to dustpodcast@gmail.com, or you can send a voicemail by calling 314-269-0421. What else, Holly? Anything?
Just reread the chapter today about this episode, just to kind of get more of a comparison of what happened, how things went down, and I will say that they did... Mrs. Coulter did mention her guards to Boreal while she's at his house, so like it's already set up in the book that's how she's going to be able to like get through the specters. And also, I think we talked about this last week we did, because that's when they went through the window. Boreal does confirm that in the book that once Azrael blew the worlds open, the doors moved, and he does see a window through to his Oxford, and he like went through it and saw Mrs. Coulter, and he was able to bring her directly from their world into Will's world, whereas they didn't take that route with the show, and they actually went through Chitagase, which he is too scared to do because of the specters. I feel like the specters are more of a threat in the book. Like there's just even more than what we've seen in the show. So that's it. Just a couple of like little things to clean up for I think we talked about in previous episodes.
Excellent. One other thing that we probably ought to clean up, because we've been putting this off for 2 weeks and we still can't figure out what's going on. We have a DM from our good friend at Dragonfell UK. The Mrs. Coulter takeaway from the Tower of the Angels, the look she gave Boreal when he brought up Windows, it definitely read, "Do you really think you're first?" And that did resurface in this episode, right?
Yes, which is why I was confused about which episode he was talking about, because that happened in both episodes this weekend, the previous one.
Yeah, exactly. And then this other one, I'm still lost on, Jonathan. If you could tweet back to me or DM back to us and clarify. I wonder what happened to the painting and the statue. I'm not exactly sure what you're referencing there.
I'm not either, and I'm sorry. I'm a bad book reader with a terrible eye for details.
That would be both of us. Folks, we want you to contact us. Holly, if people don't want to bother trying to guess whether they're going to get you or me at the regular podcast Twitter, how can they reach out to you personally and say, boy, that Matt, he's really a jerk, isn't he?
You can find me at Hunt Pants on the Twitter. Yeah, I don't.
Yeah, it's weird.
It's weird, and I'm realizing, man, if you try to message me and I don't follow you back, I'm sorry. I don't know what to do. I will try to be better, but it's okay. Hey, I think the podcast Twitter account has surpassed my follower count, so that's awesome. I've been on Twitter for a decade, and hooray! That makes me happy for the podcast.
Yeah, well, we're very happy for the podcast, and feel free to DM the podcast again at the Dust Podcast anytime if you don't want to spoil your fellow followers or other people on the Twitters who might be peering at you because they know that you know more about these books than Matt does, for sure. But feel free to tweet at us, and if you want to tweet me about the music stuff and make sure that I get it You can ignore all of my tweets otherwise, but be sure to send a DM to @musicalconcepts, or just tweet at me, say, hey, follow me so I can send you a DM. I will do so, and we'll have a conversation from there. Anything else, Holly? Are we done?
Let's predict next week, since we're in book. We're going to see Angelica's Wrath. Are we going to see witches? Are we going to see some world changing, some specter attacks? What do you think is going to take up the last episode, maybe?
We got to see angels, right?
We got to see freaking angels.
Yeah, we definitely got to see angels. We're at that point now. We can't go on with Mary Malone without getting a sense of that, or without the witches. I mean, the witches have arrived in Chittagazze too, you have to assume. So they're gonna see angels for sure, right?
Yes. Maybe this will continue the pace they started last season with kind of overlapping some books, and maybe we'll see Mary Malone actually get, or like almost arrive to Malefa World before season 2 ends, and that way we're not spending time like backtracking her journey in season 3. She'll already be there, so that'll be cool.
Yeah, she's got a mountain to climb yet, right?
She's got a lot to do. A lot of windows to go through.
Yeah. We'll see you next time on
The Dust Podcast.
That's so much better.